A defense attorney is picked, viral fundraising is slowing down, and there is a heated debate about a celebrity behind bars. As Luigi Mangione awaits his next court hearing in a couple of weeks, we're learning new details about the young man who allegedly shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It's been a little while since we've talked about Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old raised in Baltimore, mostly recently living in Hawaii, behind bars in Brooklyn, inside the same jail, the same detention center, by the way, as accused sex trafficker Sean Diddy Combs. And as you may know, Mangione is facing a slew of federal and state charges after police have identified him as the man who allegedly shot and killed the CEO of United Healthcare, Brian Thompson, on a normally bustling New York street. After an intense manhunt that lasted several days, Mangione was allegedly spotted at a McDonald's in Pennsylvania. He was taken into custody, which is when police say they found a ghost gun, meaning at least some of the parts were 3D printed. They found a silencer, a journal, writings, which expressed or seemed to express his disdain for the U.S. healthcare system. And look, at some point, Mangione is going to face weapons charges out in Pennsylvania, but first, he's got some serious charges here in New York. So on the state level, we're talking first-degree murder in furtherance of terrorism, second-degree murder, and illegal weapon possession and forgery charges. At the federal level, he has been charged with using a firearm to commit murder, which carries a maximum penalty of death or life in prison. Let's keep that in mind. And he's also facing stalking and discharging of firearm charges. Now, he's been denied bond. He's currently locked up in the Metropolitan Detention Center, the MDC. And get this, his attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, is actually married to Sean Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilo, the guy who's representing him in the federal case, the criminal case. And Mark, by the way, is reportedly helping out on Mangione's case as well. And Mangione is next due in federal court in the Southern District on February 17th, where we expect there will be a preliminary hearing. And now we know who the Agnifilos will be teaming up with. The Honorable Catherine H. Parker of the Southern District of New York has granted an application from the Federal Defenders of New York to name a new member of the defense team, seemingly free of charge. The application reads, I recommend the appointment of Avraham Moskowitz as learned counsel. Mr. Moskowitz is a member of the SDNY Capital Panel and has frequently been found learned in the law of capital cases. In arriving at the recommendation, I have contacted the government and defense counsel and have reviewed the conflict list. Mr. Moskowitz is available and does not appear to have any conflict. And that is interesting, of course, because Mangione, as I mentioned, could face the death penalty if he's found guilty of killing Thompson at that federal charge, that federal murder charge. And the court would want a defense attorney who is very well versed in capital punishment. And obviously bringing him on the team is a big consideration. And Moskowitz, let me give you a little bio here, served as an assistant United States attorney in the Southern District of New York from 1985 to 1991. He's now a founding partner in his own law firm. This is somebody who has experience in this jurisdiction. I have another update for you, because when it comes to Mangione's representation, a legal fund is still garnering donations online, but the pace of contributions has seemed to slow. Right now, the Give, Send, Go fundraiser has raised more than $240,000. The fundraiser was started by a team of 15 volunteers from around the country called the December 4th Legal Committee, according to Newsweek. And in their latest update, the organizers wrote, the donations to this campaign have been small, but they have added up to something massive. It goes on to say at one point, thank you to everyone here who is continuing to show up for Luigi, and thank you for sharing your stories and words of support. We all know firsthand about the horrors orchestrated by the for-profit healthcare industries in this country. In a statement to Newsweek, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, again, Luigi Mangione's attorney, Luigi is aware of the fund and very much appreciates the outpouring of support. My client plans on utilizing it to fight all three of the unprecedented cases against him. But as Mangione awaits trial and he's behind bars, that can be a pretty harrowing experience for any person. And Mangione's status as this kind of folk hero could mean things are quite different for him inside. So to talk about this, I want to bring on friend of the show, prison consultant Justin Paperny, to talk more about it. Justin, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate your time.
Good to be here. Of course.
Now, Justin, we've talked about what celebrities, what that can be inside of a lockup. What do you think about Mangione, his experience in, by the way, the MDC, the same place where Sean Combs is?
Once he got there, it is a new environment. All attention is on him. It makes the initial experience easier in this new environment. But as time goes on, just like donations begin to dwindle and people begin to move on to other cases, I think the reality of his life sets in. I am confined. I am on suicide watch 24 hours a day. I am totally separated. And as this experience becomes more common and numbing, I think the reality of what he's facing will kick in. I may be here for the rest of my life. So those initial days, I don't want to say exciting, but they go quickly because there's so much drama. But in time, the reality sets in. I'm in real trouble.
That's a really interesting point. Now, assuming these allegations are true and he did this, do you see that a lot of people in your experience, when they're committing a crime or they're planning a crime, because again, the allegation here is he planned it, they don't think what prison would look like? I mean, they have to know there's a risk of them getting caught, but do they have a different concept of what jail, prison, detention center, what that life might be like, and they're not thinking that far ahead, or they have a wrong perception of what it's like?
I think most people who commit a crime who are right minded aren't considering the long term repercussions that follow. They give in, they make a bad decision, they give in to temptation, they rationalize it's the right choice, and boom, they're standing for count. In the white collar crime world, it could be 3, 5, 10 years, but there is a release date. In his case, if convicted or if he pleads guilty, it was clear he wasn't thinking about the long term repercussions that would follow in that moment because he will not have a release date. He'll be there for the rest of his life. And that can take some time. The acceptance portion of that is incredibly difficult. And look at all of these cases that we have covered. In time, we move on. Combs, we will move on from. The Varsity Blues case, all these parents paid to get their kids into school. It was everything. We moved on. In time, we will move on from this case and he will endure the reality. If convicted, I know he's only been alleged, this is the remainder of his life. So I would argue, no, he was not considering that he may get caught, or if he did, he convinced himself, as so many have argued online, this is for the greater good. He's a martyr. He's taking one for the team, so to speak, and it's part of the reason he has garnered such sympathy. And if convicted, which is part of the reason I don't think he would plead guilty, because if convicted, the sentence would be the same, whether you plead guilty or not. It's going to be life in prison. He can maintain that he took one for the team, that he is indeed a martyr, which can continue to have people sympathize with him and support him. But no, I don't think he was considering what his life would be like in prison if caught.
Justin, are you surprised the donations appear to be slowing down?
Yes, we move on to other interests. There are other cases. There are things that interest us. There's a very busy world, and cases are continuing to pop up. It will probably pop up again once there's more hearings or if he goes to trial, because it will be back in the news and it will be all over social media. People will say, go here to support the issue. It will pop up again and more money will come in if there is a sentencing hearing. But yes, they're going to dwindle, go up, and eventually it will be nothing because we're going to be talking about another case on a law and crime.
That's true. I mean, let's talk about a little bit more about Mangione and what's going on here. So he only spent 10 days at the State Correctional Institution in Huntington, Pennsylvania when he was first arrested. But I'll tell you what, his presence apparently left quite a lasting impact on both the inmates and the guards, because if you believe Vaughn Wright, who is a writer currently incarcerated at SCI Huntington, this was very interesting. Wrote about Mangione's notoriety in an essay published by the Prison Journalism Project. And he said, Mangione's notoriety likely softened the amount of oppression the guards here would usually dispense because they wanted something from him. Seems to claim that there's always an agenda, especially in prison. According to Wright, Mangione was housed on D Block at Huntington, which is usually where the death row prisoners were held. And every time Mangione was escorted to or from his cell, the block went into lockdown and no other prisoner movement was allowed. This is what Wright wrote. Justin, what's your opinion on what Wright is taking away here from his observations of the prison guards and also the prison and Mangione?
Just because someone writes it doesn't mean it's true, or it could be his experience. I'm not of the opinion, whether it's the Bureau of Prisons and the Epstein debacle or this state prison, that guards were incentivized to do anything other than do their job because of the scrutiny they knew would follow every decision they made because of the worldwide attention to this case. So I don't think any additional attention was paid to him other than perhaps more eyes on him to ensure nothing happened to him from another prisoner, something that he wouldn't do to himself, or perhaps some case manager or guard offering someone going rogue and offering some incentive. So more eyes were on him than ever, but I don't think it was anything unusual. Prison systems are broke. They don't want lawsuits. They don't want firings. They don't want more investigations they can't afford. Same thing in the BOP, which is in disarray following the Epstein debacle. So I'm not of the opinion that he got any different treatment other than a few more eyes on him.
If somebody of his notoriety, what he's accused of doing, does that put a target on his back in prison? I mean, let's just amplify that a little bit, because what he's become this kind of, folk hero. People are saying, "Oh my gosh, he's taking it to the system. He's taking it to the man." Is that something that would be celebrated in a prison environment, a jail environment, or is that something that could make him a victim? It could put a target on his back.
Certainly. I mean, look at how many people are serving time in prison for that sort of crime, and they're fine. And there's no security issues inside of the prison. There are no doubt some prisoners who might be surprised and impressed at his background and privilege and upbringing. It doesn't fit the DNA of someone who would allegedly go and commit a murder. So there's no doubt some prisoners may be enamored by his conduct. Others, of course, won't care. So I don't think it brings any more admiration than if it were any other type of crime. Really, when you go to prison, you're kind of resetting. You're starting over from scratch. His prison reputation is building every single day by what he does or how he responds and what he is saying. And it's an experience I know he and his family never imagined in a million years he would endure. And it's only going to get harder and harder the longer that he's in prison and the more the reality sets in. Like, I'm 26 years old and I may spend the rest of my life in prison, and in time, most, not all, but most will forget about me.
Mm. Wright says that instead, this is again his claim, instead of the standard orange jumpsuit that all the rest of the inmates wear, Mangione was wearing what inmates call a turtle suit. So it's that padded blue outer garment designed to prevent someone from hurting themselves. Does that make sense to you, that he, would have been wearing this, and why would he have been wearing this when others might have been wearing something else?
It makes total sense. Their eyes are on him 24 hours a day. The idea that he could take his own life is a concern within the prison. While some people argue these smock suits, so to speak, are dehumanizing, embarrassing for the prisoner, the only thing the prison cares about is security of the institution, keeping costs down, no more Epstein type problems. So it is not surprising to me that he's in that suit. It's not surprising to me that he is alone, isolated, 24 hours a day. And you could argue that the prison system, even those inside, may think, yeah, maybe he doesn't need to be in this suit. Maybe he doesn't need to be witnessed or supervised 24 hours a day. But the risk of something bad happening to him with the global attention paid to his case is just too great. So you can expect him to continue to wear that suit with 24 hours a day monitoring, even if people online go viral and claim that it's not fair, it's dehumanizing. The Federal Bureau of Prisons would say he should have thought about that before he allegedly killed someone in cold blood.
I will tell you, the media circus that surrounded Mangione's case, it impacted the life of the people at SCI Huntington. So I don't know if everybody remembers this, but when News Nation anchor Ashley Banfield, who's been on the show before, set up for a live shot outside that unit, outside that detention center, that prison, inmates just went wild. They were trying to communicate with her. Wright wrote that he hadn't heard such raucous unison from prisoners since the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2018. So inmates, they started yelling out windows, flashing their cell lights to get Banfield's attention. And you have to say, and he mentioned this in the article, for a moment, these forgotten men felt like they had a voice again. But that party didn't last long, because according to him, prison administrators quickly cracked down on the light show, threatening disciplinary action, including solitary confinement for anyone caught interacting with the media like this. Justin, that was quite a sight. What did you take away from that? Because again, it seems like, I'm not surprised they did it. You have a big TV crew out there. Mangione's now in this unit. This is your time to do something. I'm not surprised they did that.
Prison routine for many people can just be boring. It's monotonous, or Groundhog Day, as they would call it. You get up, you go to the chow hall, you exercise, you have your job, you program, you take a nap, you program more, you go to bed, you wake up and you do it again the next day. So for many of these prisoners, it shook up their routine. It was exciting. It was different. It was new. It brought energy to an otherwise, as many people would tell you, a very dull, depressing, hard life. So that's why you saw prisoners yelling outside the windows. It just shook up their routine. And just like that, they're now back to the same routine they had before he was there. So it's, even when I was in prison, we'd have a speaker come in to speak. You have a little bit of energy. It feels different. That's how it felt for those prisoners when he was serving that short window in that state prison.
But the prison officials hate it, right? They're angry.
We can't ever forget what prison officials care about. Security of the institution, keeping costs down. They don't want more investigations. They don't want more lawsuits. So when you have prisoners yelling out windows or creating a ruckus, as you would say, it could lead to drama. It could lead to potential riots. It could lead to issues and violence. They prefer that things are low key, no investigations, no problems. I can assure you, when Mangione was moved out of that prison to MDC, it was all a sigh of relief. He's gone. We had no problems. Let's get back to the day-to-day issue of running this state prison. That was a good day for administrators when he left.
And look, it's not just Mangione's fellow inmates that have been impacted by all this. We are still seeing support online from people who believe that while what Mangione allegedly did might have been against the law, it was somehow morally justified. We've talked about this before on Sidebar about jury nullification, meaning a jury wouldn't really decide this case on the facts or the evidence, but they unanimously agree to make their decision based on emotions or sympathy. They're not supposed to do that. And it could be arguably one of Mangione's best defenses. Again, not something his attorneys are legally allowed to put forward. But Susan Campbell, who's a distinguished lecturer at the University of New Haven, previously told me people like Luigi Mangione become folk heroes when people feel powerless against systems they feel have failed them. The health insurance industry has let so many people down, and then up steps this young man to shoot one of the industry's leaders. So it's a complex situation. There are no easy answers. On one hand, we have a man who's accused of a horrific crime, and on the other, we have a system that has failed so many people that some are viewing this alleged crime as justified. It's a powder keg of emotions and societal issues. There's no easy answer. But Wright concluded in his quote, "Now, nearly 2,000 of us are part of that story. No matter what, Mangione is and will forever be an SCI Huntington alumnus. His brothers here will intently follow his case as it moves forward through the criminal justice system." Now, the story doesn't end there because Mangione supporters have latched onto details from Wright's essay to fuel conspiracy theories about his safety in custody. So the mention of Mangione wearing a turtle suit has apparently sparked fears that he could be assassinated and made it look like he took his own life. There are a lot of theories, again, about what happened to Jeffrey Epstein before his death in jail. Social media has been ablaze with posts expressing concern for Mangione's well-being, some alleging that there's going to be a setup to silence him. Now, it's important to note that there's no evidence of any plot against Mangione. The turtle suit is a standard precaution, as we've been talking about, for inmates who are considered at risk of self-harm. But in the echo chamber of social media, these theories can take on a life of their own. Justin, you and I were talking about this, and you say it makes absolutely no sense.
Before I address that, there is a brotherhood that comes with serving time in prison. So I can understand the prisoner who penned this article. There's an understanding that comes with serving time with him and a sense of sympathy and togetherness. I felt that too with people that I served time with. Before we went on, I think I've done maybe 30 or 40 law and crimes. This is the first time I've been perplexed. I had to think it through many times. I thought I was off or insane. Here's why. He has a anti-suicide suit on, yet people are alleging by virtue of wearing this suit, which protects suicide, if they allegedly kill him with this suit on, they're then going to claim that it was suicide, even though he's wearing an anti-suicide suit. I don't get it. It's not true. The only thing the Bureau of Prison cares about right now is keeping him safe. They cannot have any more debacles and problems. It gets tens of millions of views online. It is astonishing. Someone says it, people believe it, it spreads. It doesn't make any sense to me, and here's why. It's not true.
Justin, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to talk about as this case progresses and as he spends more time behind bars. But, look, it's a very unique case. I haven't seen anything quite like this before. I imagine a lot of people haven't. But we will see, and we will cover it as best as we can here on Sidebar. Justin Paperny, thanks so much. Appreciate you taking the time.
Good to see you.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now.